Hello and welcome everybody to today's Chinese Corner on traditional Chinese medicine. My name is George and I work at the Confucius Institute for Coventry University. And before we get into things, I would just like to spend a moment to explain who we are and what we do. So the Coventry University Confucius Institute, our main goal is to promote and share Chinese language and culture across our area, which is the West Midlands. And to do that, we spend a lot of time running Chinese Mandarin language classes, and we run cultural events such as this online discussion. And in normal times, we would try to do these in person. We also try to look at ways that we can support local business people and anyone interested in learning more about China, Chinese language and culture in general. If you have any questions or suggestions or anything you'd like to know more about, please contact us by our email here at confuciusinstitute@coventry.ac.uk and follow us for updates on our social media accounts, which are all at Confucius Cov Uni. Thank you very much. And I'd like to just ask people again today, please ask any questions that you have for our esteemed guest anytime. So let us begin by welcoming Dr. Wei Haifeng. So welcome.
My pleasure.
Okay. Thank you. Let's start by introducing yourself. So could you tell us a little bit about you and why you are here?
I'm currently working in Work University in a company called Neuro Solutions, studying the drugs that treat neurological diseases. But I had a Chinese medicine background ever since my undergraduate back in 1990. At that time, my first degree is Chinese medicine, specialized in the orthopedics. That means the bone correction by Chinese medicine. That's from one institute for China Academy of Chinese Medical Science, Chinese Medical Sciences. Yeah.
Excellent. So, could you tell us a little? Why did you originally decide to pursue Chinese medicine as an area of study?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think in 1980s in China, there's a popular wave of qigong. Yeah, the qi.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody quite excited about how the qi works in the body. So that idea, that kind of sense of qi, attracted me a lot. I think the best way to approach that is studying Chinese medicine.
So when you say qi, what is that? How would you explain that to people like myself who don't know what that is?
Yeah, so I think it's basically the kind of a internal sense of some energy flowing in the body. But for my wife, she also my classmate during our master degree studies. She has been practicing acupuncture for 30 years now.
Mm-hmm.
But for her recent understanding of the qi, it's kind of thinking from Bible that God breathed the air, the qi into the breathed into the nerves of Adam. So she got to think why this qi come from. But from medical research, I had been engaged with that research for 3 years in the Institute of Acupuncture in China. But no any material things that can be referred to qi. Yeah, actually, yeah.
So I mean, this is obviously when we're going to start looking at traditional Chinese medicine. I think this is a rather interesting thing to begin with, because as you mentioning, this is not perhaps something that in our Western modern ideas, we would like to point to something physical that we can see, touch, smell, hear.
Yeah.
Whereas we start our journey here with qi, which is perhaps something that is clearly, obviously, something you bring in as a spiritual basis as well as a philosophical, perhaps. And I understand qi is also something that is quite clear in Tai Chi. Is this also around this energy movement? And I think this is perhaps something, the conversation that we will come into to later when we have some various ideas.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start this session. As I said, we said you have studied traditional Chinese medicine. I know you have practiced in TCM. So I'd like to start for the Western audience, for people in the UK. We perhaps don't have an appreciation of the history or the background of Chinese medicine. So I know this is a field of study with thousands of years of people studying. There are very many distinct areas. But is there a general sense of traditional Chinese medicine or an overall philosophy towards it that you would be able to try to explain to us?
Yeah. For example, this the acupuncture model my wife now used. Actually, the original theory that from a book that's a Huangdi Neijing, that a kind of the Bible of Chinese medicine that tells about some meridians in the body and different channels flowing in the body, and that is kind of never stopping until people died. So that's the kind of general holistic view of the people, as kind of energy flowing into the body. So Chinese medicine basically have several kind of general view of the human body and the health. So the human body are related to the Chinese medicine said the heaven and the earth. So everybody was born because of the qi of the heaven and the earth. There is so the human bodies are influenced by the seasons, by what happened in the environment. So that's kind of a theory of general, that a kind of integration of human beings to the nature or something. And another side saying that the human body, different part of the body are integrated by the meridians, and even different outside the nose, eyes are related to the different organs in the body. So there's some kind of integrated view of the human body. Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is an idea that I've heard in various areas, the idea of meridians and energy flows. I think that's something that's common across Asia, when perhaps in Southeast Asia, when they go to a Thai massage, they always have discuss the similar sort of meridians, as you say, acupuncture, acupressure. And you mentioned the idea of different parts of the body relating to different organs. I mean, we see that in reflexology with the feet as well. I know that there are common areas across the idea. So if we start from this idea that there is qi, there is a shared energy, or we can have energy flowing through the body, how does traditional medicine use that or understand that to try to heal people or to help people when there is something wrong?
Yeah, I think that the Chinese medicine, they have their own diagnostic method. Yeah. So use eye to look, and use nose to smell, and then to ask and check the pulse.
Mm-hmm.
For example, check the pulse. Yeah. Different play a part of the pulse can reflect the different qi flow in the body. For example, people have the kidney deficiency.
Mm-hmm.
In their bottom of the pulse, they feel quite weak. So we by checking the pulse, we know that's one way.
Mm-hmm. This is something that I do want to sort of try to understand a little more, because it's something that I have seen in China. I've had a traditional doctor come to look at this, and for our viewers, if you go to a TCM doctor, you will have, I'll try to show, so the doctor will place 3 fingers onto the pulse and move it around, and the idea is that this will give an idea of what's going on in your body.
Yeah,
this is fair. And the doctor would also be asking you questions at this time.
Yeah. So
now, again, from my understanding of the cardiovascular system, is that this is a pipe that sends blood through, and I have difficulty understanding how there can be different pulses at sort of this length of the pipe. So I've never really understood how that can show something different. Would you care to try to help me?
Yeah, it's kind of I think Chinese medicine has some ingredients of holographic. Do you know this term, holographic? That's a part of the body, like this air ones.
Yeah.
A part of the body represents some part of the whole body. So
yeah.
For example, for this ear, this part represents the head area.
Yeah.
And this eye, this is part of the eyes.
Yeah.
So the pulse seems similar. So with the up we check the 寸光尺, the 3 parts.
Yeah.
The part reflect the upper body.
Mm-hmm.
The left side means heart. Left up heart, the left middle is liver, and the left bottom the kidney.
Mm-hmm.
The right side means lung, represent the lung, and this middle represents the spleen, the digestive system, and the lower part means the 密门, that means a file, a kind of general file. We said a kind of central heating generator from this part. So yeah, this will be kind of a holographic view of that.
Okay. So you this is then based on the sort of the strength of the pulse in the different places, or
yeah, strength and sometimes it's a different. If sometimes it's a very thin. You say strength. Sometimes it's a various of strength. Sometimes it's the pulse very quick, and the force are very strong. But sometimes I think it's quite a complicated system instead of 1, 2, 3 there.
Yeah, I mean it is something that is quite, that, as I say, I'm trying to approach this from the idea of what is very different from, obviously, from what we would say as we expect in the West, where we would expect someone take our temperature and find just perhaps simply the heart rate, and would use the machine to test the heart rate across the idea. So it's interesting that is a staple of history in China, of the pulse. Is such a classic thing, and it's something that someone like myself, who is, I will be fair, for something like this, I do approach as a bit of a skeptic.
Sure.
As a bit of a skeptic, I think that I've tried to be open minded. It is something that I do. I'm eager to understand, and I won't talk about this one. And then, because also so once you found out with this one, we say we're using the meridians to help him find the journey. So this would be a diagnostic tool to help the practitioner understand what is the base issue. What sort of ways does traditional Chinese medicine use to address a problem or an issue with somebody's health?
Yeah, so the acupuncture, the needles is the one way.
Yep.
And this is the needle, and moxibustion. There's some use some herbs in a rub together, and then some fires, so such as to heat up the acupoints. Yeah. And I think the mainstreams use Chinese herbs in China. It's more popular and have more longer influence. And the other ways for massage or Chinese way of orthopedics. Yes, there's various of it.
Yeah, no, of course, these are all ways that I have personally used. I've had acupuncture and it was made me feel rather good, and I've had massage on a injury whilst I was living in China, and my wife does quite often use some herbs. Okay. So, and I should be very clear, and I'm sure you'll agree, sometimes the herbs have a very strong and not particularly delicious smell. They're quite common. Something I think is worth looking at when you say this process and the huge variety of herbs that and methods of practice from the diagnosis and the treatment. This is something that's available in almost every hospital in China. Would that be fair to say that is there a real in the UK we have a clear definition? There are the hospitals and we get the modern medicine, and there if we wish some traditional Chinese treatments or some other alternative treatments, we go elsewhere privately. However, in China it's all together. Is that fair to say? So when you go into a hospital in China, you will see there is a traditional Chinese medicine smell straight away, as there are also X-ray machines and IVs and things like this.
Yeah, in China there are two kind of hospital you will find. That one is a very pure Western medicine hospital, but in that hospital, Chinese medicine is only a small department. Yeah. But in some hospitals, that integration of Chinese medicine and the Western medicine, so that the Chinese medicine have a broader department, so a different two kinds of hospital system, I think, in China.
Yeah, and what I think one of the questions that we were looking at, what's the general? I mean, within and across China culture and the population, what would you think is the general opinion or the general feeling about the traditional Chinese medicine, modern medicine, Western medicine, however we should describe that? Is there a distinction in minds, or is it just all different options?
I think it should have different in mind. The one thing that from their deep in their root in their mind, so in our mind sometimes, is the Chinese medicine to get rid of the root of disease. And the Western medicine just treat the symptoms and treat temporarily some kind of way. But I think that it should be changing with the development of Western medicine.
Okay, yeah, that's something I've definitely heard before, with the distinction of the traditional Chinese having a more holistic approach, try to figure out the underlying health issue rather than the symptom, and that's something that I kind of appreciate as a sort of all-round health of a person. And I'd be interested. Well, while we mentioned, I know we do have a few people who are watching and with us today. I would love to have your comment on if you have any history of use of or experience with traditional Chinese medicine, and especially for our Chinese friends in the comments, if you could share your any experiences that you're willing to share. I would love to hear and have a little bit of discussion based around that. So obviously we have this background in China, and you have many opportunities to practice in China when you were there. What brought you to the UK?
I had a very few occasionally practice in UK when back in 2004 when I was a visiting scholar.
Mm-hmm.
I did some, and later on, mainly my wife, she's a very experienced acupuncturist or Chinese medicine specialist actually in Leamington now. So we sometimes treat each other. So any questions are welcome.
So, I mean, for yourself, you say you are say it's. I don't want to. Obviously, you can't speak for your wife, but and
it's a shame that she work on Friday, so she cannot join this time. Maybe next time.
And I'm interested now that you say you are, and you're working up. You say you're working at Warwick University for the Nova Solutions company and studying neurological disease and issues.
Pharmacology.
Pharmacology. Yeah. So, what could you talk a little bit about what you are studying, and are you? Is there a balance? Obviously, when we come to my interest is the balance of the sort of the spiritual nature that we started with and the scientific rigor, perhaps, of academia, and how is that bridged? How is that something that we are working towards?
That's the word I had been very interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Back in 1995, when I just graduated from Chinese medicine college university as a medical doctor. Mm-hmm. At that time, I was quite interested in clinical practice actually, but one morning came to me that how this Chinese medicine works, and substantially, that mind drove me to a fundamental basic research, scientific research, how this Chinese medicine works. So my first academic career is studying how the meridians response in the physical body and in the brain. Mm-hmm. My first approach is a neurological approach. How the brain, when there's a needle in the acupoints, how the brain responds. Is there any difference between acupuncture point and the other place? No acupuncture points. Mm-hmm. And then we have the electro EEG, electrophysiological recording on brain on the cortex. So we did feel a very big difference in response. So since acupuncture stimulate in the acupoints, mm-hmm. incurs a profoundly large response in the brain to that.
So when you if you place a needle or pressure into an acupuncture point, you have a larger spike than if it is not in a different place that's not one of the original places. Do you think, or do you think, is there any biological explanation for that would fit with the obviously the spiritual?
Yeah, I think the spiritual is kind of at the back of material change. So I had a paper about the meridian research published in Acupuncture in Medicine I think in 1999. That I found that there are a lot of research found around these meridians. Mm-hmm. That there are more nerve endings happened, mm-hmm. More enrichment of blood circulation and around these meridian channels, mm-hmm. and also lymphatic channels, vessels. So kind of enrichment around these meridians, although no any structure finding that's a special that's a meridian no, we cannot find it, but we can find a spatial organization of the nerve endings, blood vessels, and the lymphatic change, and some other, we can say the physical character change along these meridians. So there's some evidence, there's something you can feel. Even we can detect when there's a needle in this point, we can detect with the heat sensors, thermometers. You can feel that this around these meridians, that they can show how to heat image around the meridians.
Okay. So that's interesting. I mean, again, this is something that is worth. I've in many of my discussions with. I had a very good friend of mine when I was living in Taiyuan in Shanxi, China, who was studying at the Shanxi Medical School for traditional Chinese medicine, and he would explain that some of the, I would say some of the misunderstanding that we perhaps have in the West of traditional Chinese medicine, that it is purely spiritual or purely based on belief. Whereas there are many people like yourself who are actively studying to try to apply science to their belief, or trying to look at the evidence for let's say for the historically, perhaps what we would say the anecdotal evidence of we do this and it works, but is there a scientific basis? These are research projects that have been going on for years, hundreds of years, and there's a lot of real evidence for many parts of traditional Chinese medicine. So, and I think that's, you say, what you were trying to do. Now, I'm curious, when as you are living in the UK, what have you noticed, or when you have discussions with people outside of your academic subject, what sort of reactions do you get? Do you feel there is a different attitude towards Chinese medicine in the UK than in China?
Yeah, I think perhaps the British people are very kind. They're normally not showing a bigger opinion to me, but generally they are quite acceptable to Chinese medicine. Although it's difficult to understand, as you say, sometimes this. And my wife, she got quite a lot of patients, and they feel that it really works in relieving their health problems.
Yeah. I mean, it is worth mentioning that, I mean, if we look online, we can see that I believe something that the NHS are either looking to provide or is certainly discussed on the NHS website. So it's something that there is widely accepted and widely popular, certain aspects. So my other question would be, and I think this may not be the most fair question, but I think it's quite interesting, is we tend to put Chinese medicine in the sort of the column of alternative medicine. So that would also put into reflexology, people with crystals, and people, things like using the there is the medicine where we put a little bit of something into lots of water, and
homeotherapy.
Homeotherapy. Do you think that is fair to put into with all of these other ideas?
In my view, perhaps not fair.
Why is that? I'd like to talk to that.
I think Chinese medicine is a very kind of profound, comprehensive, systemic medical treatment system, instead of just piece by piece. And it's so it can perhaps not the same as as far as I know at this moment.
Okay. No, I think we've just had I say thank you, John, for your comment. And when we looking back to the pulse checking, who wants to clarify that Western medicine doctors, when taking a pulse, will also be checking the how weak or powerful, the fall of the pulse, the impression of elasticity or rigidity of the blood vessel, comparing your left side with right side, wrist pulse and leg pulse and heartbeat, and all sorts of things, providing information, also including breathing patterns, smell, demeanor, tremors. So I appreciate this idea that yes, Western modern medicine is also checking many of the same things, perhaps then as TCM, that are very much part of the overall picture of a person's health. Thank you for that, John.
Perhaps that different information we extract from those result of checking. So when there's some stiffness, rigid in one part, we have a think of other information according to Chinese medical system.
I think it's also very important to mention that there is also the one of the big things that people don't is that the doctors also talk to the patients to try to ask what's feeling and how things are going on. That's however, that might not be the best evidence. It is something that's true for both fields, and I don't think the idea of this session is trying to get into one or the other. One is better or worse than the other. I don't think we're going to convince people one way or the other. And I certainly believe that there are times, and I'm sure that you would be clear that there are certain things that you would go to a modern medicine for. If you, for example, got into a car crash and you had a broken leg injury, or you would suggest going straight to the hospital.
Yeah, that's what in my mind originally my thought, that the medical system should be two ways to work together. One way is that which medicine to have the materials focused and lab-based check and drug discovery. Another, the holistic view of the body, the treatment system. So in my early dream is to make every hospital to work into two foot, and that's the kind of save a lot of energy, save a lot of money.
I think, and that's something I think is worth expanding on, because when you look at something you did mention earlier, the idea of traditional Chinese medicine looking at the root of disease, looking at the fundamental issue within a person, rather than perhaps the symptom. There are times when it's very important and absolutely necessary, no doubt, to treat the symptom. So, however, I think would it be fair to say that, in my understanding, certainly looking at the root of disease and the overall health, that's an ongoing, lifelong, day-to-day practice, where we can be aware not only of the specific treatment such as acupuncture, but is that also lifestyle? There are also lifestyle factors. Would that be fair to say? So when giving some acupuncture or advice, what sort of things are generally advised in this looking at this lifelong thing? Is our traditional Chinese medicines also giving advice on lifestyle and diet, for example?
I think according to Chinese medicine, every people, they have their own different kind of physical character. Some people easy to feel cold. Some people easy to lose temper. Some people easier to get very thin. Some people easier to overweight something. So everybody has different physical conditions according to Chinese medicine, like the Wu Xing. So they will give advice based on the physical condition of each body, and so for me at my early times, it's very easy to caught fire in the mouth. So that means indeficiency causes. Some Chinese medical doctors would just suggest me to eat less hot food.
Mm. Would that be hot spicy or hot temperature?
Hot spicy, sorry.
Okay, just for clarification.
Mm.
Again, this is another aspect of medicine that I've heard being discussed, and I'm also would love to have explain a little bit. This idea of hot and cold within the body, I think, is something that perhaps because of the vocabulary, the language used of hot and cold, that perhaps we would expect that there would some temperature change, but it's perhaps more about something that's not necessarily your actual temperature variation. It's a concept of something inside the body. So could you explain what does that mean? You say you had the fire in your mouth, but I've been, people have discussed that they have the heat in the belly or something. They have a cold thing. What does that mean in medicine, in Chinese medicine?
I think if you say in Western medicine, the inflammation as a cause, so there's some burning point. So in Chinese medicine, there's some we say etiology. So the reasons of disease to happen. There are some fundamental reasons, such as because of the heat resistant, I would say the fire, some cold inside, and some flame clouded the meridians, the flow. So there's some kind of we say as a concept, but it's easy to grasp. But the interesting things, even though people cannot really feel those heat or cold inside, but we use some Chinese herbs that aiming to increase that for cold situation with some warming up Chinese herbs. It works relieve that disease. Sometimes the cold people can feel, have the physical feeling of the cold. That this kind of weather so easily feel the cold in the food.
Yeah. But then there's the physical cold, but as you say, inside the body, there's a recognition or an idea that people would have. Do this one that this could interfere with the energy flow, with the qi, based on the heat or the cold. And Marco has put in a question. I'm going to directly put to this one. Thank you, Marco. Is traditional Chinese medicine widely practiced in the UK? And if so, how much use does it make of the herbal remedies that you've mentioned just now, that I mentioned at the beginning? Is it focused more on acupuncture, or is it both?
In China, I think it's Chinese herb is the mainstreams, and the acupuncture is another important part. But the main method of treating disease is Chinese herbs. Yeah.
So in the UK, now we are in the UK. You say your wife is involved in an acupuncture area. Is it also very common for people to use the herbal treatments? And is there any difficulty getting Chinese herbs to the UK?
No. It's very well supplied. Some of her patients ask for Chinese herbs, so she can give them as well. Sometimes she uses both of them to help the patient improve quicker. Yeah.
I'd like to clarify a little bit when we talk about Chinese herbs. How are they administered? Because I know there is not a single way. It's not purely eaten. I know that you can also perhaps inhale, or I know my wife was using had a belt where she would burn something and hold that on her belly for a while. The smell was strong, to say the least. But there are many ways. And what could you explain a little bit? How can these herbs be used, either through making I don't want to say potions, making medicines, or applications to skin, or how can they be used?
There's an area of research and area of kind of say, if you say that a kind of drug discovery or just the method. Chinese medicine had been broadly used in many parts of if the air jobs and just the pet. Yeah. That is, of course, the drinking. Some people have the bottom the bowel system disorders. They just put the medicine in. And nowadays, they now have some intravenous Chinese medicine in Chinese hospitals. They can just drip it into the blood vessels. Yeah.
And I think what I want to come into the next question is something more of a challenging and something that's definitely we get the skeptical side of people will like to always look into, and that's the idea of placebo. Or placebo, like that's something that from my understanding, obviously that is well studied, and the idea that providing something that tastes bad, and if we believe something will work, it should work. And I understand the idea is that if it tastes worse, it might work better, regardless of things. Hence, obviously, why in no doubt in your own research and other research we use the use of these double-blind trials of drug placebo.
Yes.
How does Chinese medicine address this and ensure that, or is this something that has been is new? Is this something that has been applied over years? Is this an area that, well, I will let you talk about that.
Yeah. I think the concept of a placebo effect, I think after the Western medicine develops, but because in the ancient time, Chinese patient or Chinese doctor don't care whatever. But if the patient will get improved, that's it works.
Yeah.
But now the clinical trials use that placebo effect. It's a very common, not only in Chinese medicine, in Western medicine. That's even in acupuncture. So just have the needle not insert in other areas. That's I think it's kind of psycho-physical relationship kind of effect. So people mentally, our mind is a very powerful. So with that I can say can activate some inner healing system energy in the body. The body is very powerful in healing.
Yeah. I do like your first comment of people are getting better, and I think that's what if the doctor is ultimately that is their goal and they find it is successful, that then it's perhaps doesn't need to be applied to each other. And I think that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm not going to. My background as an English teacher doesn't really give me authority to discuss any of these things. So, I would like to ask as well. Obviously, I think I have some of the ideas for myself, but are there any common misconceptions about traditional Chinese medicine that you have come across in the West?
Yeah, I think especially in hospitals, medical doctors here are very, very, I think I should say very, not too much, very, is concerned about using Chinese herbs. So if there's any patient who have taken some Chinese medical herbs and they see a doctor and the Western doctor says, oh, that problem could be caused by the Chinese medicine. So there's some research, some kind of Chinese medicine can cause some adverse effect if not using properly, causing the kidney failure. That's some cases happened, but not always. So the Western medical doctors seems have been trained that the kidney issues related to taking Chinese medicine could be.
Okay, I mean, I would be clear when you started that by saying that when West Chinese medicine has been used incorrectly, then perhaps causing kidney failure. perhaps a key point.
Yes.
But so if you have then, for example, then if you were talking to a Western doctor who isn't aware of traditional Chinese medicine, what is there any sort of message that you would like to pass for them? How would you try to convince them or encourage them to learn about this? I think it would probably be a hard sell, but what sort of message would you try to give?
I think that depends on the doctors, their own interest. Some medical doctors that they are very successful in Western medicine practice, very interested in finding more treatment for their patients. Some of them does not believe this system work. So that really depends. Yeah. It's difficult to convince by I mean, at this moment, I'm not a kind of same level of communication.
Well, that's all. So if we were to try to, or if you were to try to look or encourage Western people to learn more, to look more, or to try traditional medicine, where would be a good place to begin? What sort of, where would we start? As in, my meaning is, obviously, if we have, I don't want to say, but a serious illness, I don't think we would be trying to look for TCM. But what sort of things do you think could help on a daily basis, or for a minor issue to get into, or to start to try traditional Chinese medicine?
Yeah, at the moment, I think not only in UK, Western countries, in China, there are now some kind of principles. If some people getting some illness, discomfort for a while, it's suggested to see the Western doctor first to have a proper diagnosis, and then use if the Western medicine that in UK is free. Yeah? So if not, but it's not effective, then seek Chinese medicine would help. Otherwise, for the health care, for the lifestyle exercises, it's good to choose some Chinese medicine to maintain a very good physical functional state.
I think that's probably a good thing that I would agree with, is looking at, as you say, looking at for an overall health is a good place to begin. And I know that in China, of course, there are many people who will use traditional Chinese medicine for everything, as much have put in absolute faith in the traditional doctors. But as you say, the overarching idea would be see that there's a sort of a mixed approach, I think it's fair to say. And so I think we've addressed a lot of these things. And what sort of, and I'm curious how this would fit into other, so I keep checking my notes here, other sort of lifestyle areas. And is there any sort of practice outside of going to a TCM that you would advise that people would do that comes from Chinese medicine on a lifestyle basis that we would do every day? For example, when we're looking at traditional Chinese medicine, are we thinking about things like meditation? Is there a sort of diet that is required or advised? What sort of general advice would you give to people from a TCM perspective to be healthy?
Yeah, I think the main view of start point is to see if the whole body is a organic or holistic functional body. So if you have this view, and then you gradually to find if for example, for the eyes, if feel easy to feel tired, look at the screen too much, itchiness, And then you can find some you search eye itchiness in Chinese medicine. They maybe give you some clues what that cause for. Some could be a kind of with a heat of the lung, or the lack of blood in the liver. So deficiency of in the kidney. So some of that, then they will give you some suggestions.
Okay, sorry, I've just found one of the questions that I had that popped up when we talked earlier, and after this quiz is one of my last questions, and I would urge anyone listening, if you have questions for Dr. Wei Haifeng, please add them to the chat or the Q&A. And I don't want this to seem like a gotcha question, the idea, but this is something that's come up. So when we look at, you mentioned in the ear, for example, with the different points that connect to the different body. And yes, I know that some people would use massage to try to help other parts of the body. How does that, what happens then? And for the skeptic point of view, who might say, well, I've had an ear piercing here, and here. What does that mean for the internal body? And similarly, if we can use massage on the feet to help internal bodies, does that mean that if I step on a Lego, I step on something painful on the bottom of my feet, will that harm my internal system?
I think it's kind of one-way system, one-way out. So for the physical problem of there's some kind of functional connection. So for example, these days, one of my friends who had a kind of heart pressure, but he went to the hospital to check the ECG. So nothing really serious. So I give him some, both me and my wife give him some suggestion to press a point that's called 内光, this point. Okay. And if they're because he feels some pressure in the heart area, and this point have some kind of reflection point that are very sensitive. So he pressed that for a while, and then he feel quite a release of his heart pressure symptoms. So this kind of connection, one way, I would say one-way connection. So the internal body connect, the expression in the air point, but not necessarily this damage the point damage of the body.
Okay, so it's a positive connections only. Yeah. Okay, that's it. I mean, it's these questions that a question like that can seem very combative, like the case of, well, what about this? But I think it's important to try to address those questions such as this that people will have, and to try to come and look at these. So thank you very much for your time. I think it's nearly an hour already, and that's gone quite quickly. I think it's been very interesting to learn, and I hope that the audience, everyone who's watching, has taken something from this session, whichever your original views about the traditional Chinese medicine. And I'm hesitant to use Western medicine because I feel a lot of modern medicine comes from China. China is one of the leading researchers for medicine, for herbs. So I'm somewhat hesitant about Western and modern. I'm not unclear which term to use, and I don't like to set up that sort of dichotomy of West versus East. That's why I use modern as much rather than Western Chinese. But if we have no more questions, I think we can finish there. So, Dr. Wei Haifeng, do you have any final thoughts that you would like to share with us before we leave?
I just want to give some gift, some gift of healthcare, as you suggested. Yeah. If people, I think it's after kind of health, Chinese medicine view of health maintenance. So one way, you can massage the ear, massage your whole body each day. So from this beginning, and just not rub the skin, but press down and just not rub the skin, just press down and then just a little bit of massage with some strength. Not rub the skin, but press down and yeah, just press down. That can massage here. This area is more of the head area. If you feel the soft eyes, if you bit tired in the mind, just press this area. You feel painful, but after a while you will get it released. So the kind of you're using this area is very helpful.
Well, fantastic. I think that's a fantastic final point to finish on, and I would ask everyone to give that a go. So I hope that there are quite a few people sitting at home now trying this. And thank you very much again for your time, Dr. Wei Haifeng, and thank you everyone for joining us. Let's say goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you very much. My pleasure.